There are so many running back battles to get to that we might have to do this in a couple of shows. It is the Audible. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom here with some off-season, non-playing season content talking about running back battles. And in Pittsburgh, it's not just the running backs, now with more Cordell Patterson, Bloom. So Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, yeah. We've already heard about this, guys. Well, now Patterson's there, and now Russell Wilson's there. How many rushing touchdowns is he going to take away? And this running back battle does include that running quarterback, at least slightly, when considering these guys for your fantasy football team.
That's fair. That's fair. I think that we have in the Steelers offense change. We have change in the form of Arthur Smith, which overall bodes well for the running backs. I mean,
Yes.
you can say a lot of things about the Falcons offense and how disappointing it was during Arthur Smith's reign, but running back production was not a big letdown when you look at the backfield production as a whole, especially last year, even though, again, we feel like the passing game really underachieved. And hopefully you have this influx of young offensive line play, and the offensive line is going to gel, and we're going to see that start to click. But in Justin Fields and or Russell Wilson, hopefully at least you have a more threatening downfield passing game. So at the very least, Fields gives you that 11-on-11 football, and Russell Wilson can still scramble and still tilt the field, and when he gets to improvisational mode. But overall, you add up all that, you put that all together, I think it's a plus. I mean, I think overall, this backfield should be more productive than it was last year. And then we can get into the running back battle part. We're like, well, how is it going to be divided up? But you can take a step back when you look at these running back battles, and you can just look at ADP. ADP is a good thing to look at. Don't let ADP decide who you draft, but use it as a way to know what the hive mind of fantasy football is thinking about a player or about a situation. And in this case, if you look over at Underdog, you're looking at both of these players as 8th round picks. Wow, that seems, I mean, you would think that even if this backfield is split exactly down the middle, both of these guys are at least maxed up flex plays. And if the offense is just, 20% better, like just modest improvement, maybe both of them are every week flex plays, matchup running back twos, because we saw that start to come into focus at times in the second half of the year last year. This backfield was already productive enough to make you consider starting both of these guys. But then we look at the way that Arthur Smith managed his backfield last year, and Jaylen Warren is the Bijan Robinson. He's the player who you're using more as a receiver out of the backfield. And Jaylen Warren is already talking about how excited he is about being used as a receiver out of the backfield in this offense. And Najee Harris is more of the Tyler Algier. And look, Tyler Algier was a player that at times, Harris can have some 2-touchdown games. He can still be the finisher. Like you said, if anyone's going to be affected, Cease, I think for you to bring up the running quarterback, if anyone's going to be affected by goal line or touchdowns taken away by a running quarterback, it's Harris, not Warren.
Right.
So let me add now that Harris is going ahead of Warren, huh? I mean, I don't understand it, but that is probably, at least in terms of something actionable. We're going to talk about the Steelers running backs. What's actionable here? Jaylen Warren, man. I mean, and Jaylen Warren also from a dynasty perspective, because we could very quickly cease with it because they didn't pick up Najee Harris's 5th-year option. Again, actions speak louder than words.
Yes.
$7 million. You can have Najee Harris guaranteed $7 million, which is, it's a starting running back salary, but it's a low-end starting running back salary in a rising cap NFL. Steelers said no, which hurts because 3 years ago, you thought this guy was worth a first-round pick, but now he's not worth $7 million. So you see the trend here. It's Jaylen Warren.
It's Jaylen Warren, and then when Justin Fields gets in, what is it? You know what I mean? Like, because Fields is a dangerous runner. Russ tries so hard. It's just not going to look good. I don't think it's going to last long. Bloom, I'm on the record, officially on the record. I don't even know if Russ wins the job week 1.
He shouldn't.
That's how much I believe in Justin Fields. So when Fields is out there, and honestly, Fields will do way more as a runner, but also it opens up more for the runners.
I think so,
with
yeah.
RPO.
Yes, I agree with that. And I think that Fields being on the field loosens up the defense. I mean, it's really interesting to think about these things. And the Jayden Daniels comes up, sees, because again, what I think is neat about the way that Jayden Daniels was covered as a draft prospect and the way the NFL talked about him was often what they talked about was how you have to prepare for him as a defensive coordinator, not what you can do with him as an offensive coordinator. Just
Mhm.
as a defensive coordinator, how it changes your approach to playing defense. And that's Justin Fields. And I think it's fair to say that the Bears did not get the most out of Fields. You know, whatever way you want to look at that, personnel, coaching,
Right.
development. There's a lot of ways that the Bears organization was not an environment conducive to his development. Now, they got a mulligan with Caleb Williams and notice the environment that Caleb Williams is going to be in, offensive line, coaching, surrounding wide receivers, etc. That's way better than what Justin Fields got. And I think that this all points to hopefully a big upside for the Steelers offense. And Cecil, I agree. I think it's going to be really interesting when we look at this because this is soap opera stuff. This is definitely the human drama side of the NFL. And
Mhm.
you covered part of this with Russell Wilson, right? I mean, there's a whole other topic we could get into with Russell Wilson. Where it just seems like there's lots of hurt feelings around Russell Wilson, right?
Yeah.
Everybody is there's a he said, she said, there's I never said that kind of stuff going on,
Right.
or you hear stuff reported about his time in Seattle, then you hear like the exact opposite reported. What's going on here with Russell Wilson? And when that came to Pittsburgh, Kenny Pickett said, "I don't want to be part of this and who knows and again, now it's spread to Kenny Pickett. It's like Kenny Pickett has caught that Russell Wilson hurt feelings, this miasma of like you don't really know what's happening with this player. You don't really know what the truth is. You just know that people are upset and it's not stable around this player. That's what we have with Russell Wilson. So did the Steelers really promise him the and look, the Steelers can promise him he's gonna be a starter and break their
Sure.
promise, and
Oh, yeah.
then I mean, but did they? Or is it just like the Steelers are making it out now publicly, like, oh, he gets the first rep or some sort of deference? But it's a battle. It's an actual quarterback battle. And then we start to get to and see it's amazing how the conventional wisdom changes about a player because I think Seattle Seahawks Russell Wilson was Pete Carroll just wants to run the ball. He never lets Russell Wilson influence the game. And then Russell Wilson bails them out. And Russell Wilson is a big reason that this is a great team, right? But then you see it later on at the end in Seattle, and then you see it carry over to Denver. And look, you can make excuses for Russ. You can say he was hurt. You can say it was Nathaniel Hackett. You can say Sean
Sure.
Payton never believed in him and never gave him a
Sure.
chance. But I think there's a line you can draw that is also plausible now that, look, Russ is just not going to play in structure. He's just not going to be that quarterback.
Yep.
And if that's what you want out of a quarterback, Russ is not that guy. And if anything, Pete Carroll was, and again, look at what Geno Smith did with Pete Carroll as the head coach. That it was actually Russell Wilson that was holding back the pass offense the whole time.
Mhm.
So if the Steelers are looking at these quarterbacks and seeing them accurately and seeing what Justin Fields, and yes, with Justin Fields, you have the problem with Justin Fields is he holds on to the ball for too long, he takes too many sacks, he gives up too many turnovers. But I think you can coach guardrails into that. I
Yeah.
think you can put Justin Fields in situations and coach him in such a way that you just don't make except in the classic like fourth quarter we need a drive to win kind of scenario. Those things you just keep those out of the game by the way you manage the offense. So there's just so much more than you can add with Justin Fields. And then the other side of the question, Cecil, and I want you to talk about this since you've covered Russell Wilson, is what does Russell Wilson really have to offer to the Steelers offense?
Yeah, nothing. Absolutely nothing. So here's what you have with Russell Wilson. It turns into a Steelers show today.
Yeah.
um,
This
but
is like
here's
the
what you have.
preview. Yeah.
The bumpers in bowling is what you have with Justin Fields. And what you have with Fields is a guy that wants to learn your offense, that wants to be better as a passer, that wants to work within structure. And then you can release magic with Justin Fields that simply Russell Wilson does not have. Certainly at this point in his career, he does not have that magic that Justin Fields could have. So you have Fields who wants to do what coaches are telling him. And then you have Russ who just doesn't. He
Right.
doesn't. Now he'll say it. You interview him, he'll give you a list. Well, I got a bunch of great teammates, and here's my list.
Yeah. Yeah.
But is it authentic? Do you really want to listen? Sean
Right.
Payton changed his offense for Russell Wilson, and it didn't work.
Right.
He
Right.
changed his offense. The guy with the largest ego in the league that doesn't want to bend for anybody changed his offense for Wilson. They won some games because the defense went unconscious. But it's like, it doesn't work because you have a guy that like won't listen to criticism, like
Mhm.
literally won't listen to criticism. And I'm a positive thinker, right? I'm a magical thinker. I love the power
Mhm.
of positive thinking,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
at the same time, you have to be realistic. Russ is one of those like, I've never had a bad day in my life type of guys. It's like, really? Really? Okay. So you get fake. Russell Wilson is fake.
Yeah.
And
Right.
the Steelers, one, the locker room is not going to like that. The fans
Mhm.
aren't going to like it. So the faster you
Mhm.
can get to Justin Fields, the better this conversation becomes about the backfield and the offense in general.
Yeah, that's the thing. And what I like about what we did here, Cease, and this is a little hint of what our preseason watch list is all about.
Sure.
When we just go, but all of these things on a team are interrelated. So if you're saying what's your take on the backfield, well, what's your take on the quarterbacks? And you can look at these teams, and we always start with quarterback. Well, really, I'm trying to make sure to start with coaches and offensive line, like just touch on that, and then we move on to quarterback. But it all starts with the quarterback, where, like, let's take the Steelers' offense. So you have two levels to this task. One is from a fantasy standpoint, what does the Steelers' offense led by Justin Fields look like, and what does the Steelers' offense led by Russell Wilson look like? Like, who does it benefit? What kind of offense? What good parts is it going to accentuate? What might be its flaws or its weaknesses? But then you also have within each quarterback, like, do you believe in Russell Wilson? Do you believe in Justin Fields? And how good or how efficient on the axis of that kind of offense could it be? And everybody is implicated. Pat Fryermuth is, and what do you think about Arthur Smith? Again, how do you judge this offensive line? How they put it together? All these pieces are interrelated, and that's what's fun about this. Because if you start to think about these things, then pretty quickly you see where you diverge from everybody, and you see how you're going to run your team and hopefully win a championship.
Yeah, hopefully win a championship, and we'll see about that. Now, to go off the Steelers for a
Yeah,
moment,
finally. Yeah.
the other team that we're going to get into on today's show, and we got more running back battles to talk about. So this is part one of our running back battles preview or whatever you want to talk about. But you mentioned Jayden Daniels there. So let's talk about the Commanders because this comes into play also when you think of that elite running quarterback, that 11 on 11 football is there. Now, I think perhaps the battle or the structure of the battle is somewhat simple to identify, Sigmund,
Mhm,
but
mhm, mhm.
then we have to get into percentages of touches because Austin Eckler's going to do his Austin Eckler thing. Brian
Right,
Robinson's going to do his Brian Robinson thing. So you're going
right,
to have Robinson as your banger, Eckler as your 3 down back, special team, or excuse me, in space as third down back, change of pace back, not really change of pace because is Robinson the change of pace? Jayden is there to run and take off and make big plays. So I think it could be very positive for everybody in this running game. We just have to parse up how the splits and the touches will be parsed up because Eckler doesn't need to come off the field, but Robinson's your 2 down banger. So, all right, short yardage is Robinson. Maybe Eckler's a closer. Maybe Robinson's a closer, right? Like, how's this all going
right,
to work
right.
out in Washington?
Yeah, and I think, again, Cease, I think the easiest way to approach this one is just, well, first, how do you feel about Washington's offense this year? Because from ADP standpoint, fantasy football players are not impressed. fantasy football players are looking at Washington's offense, and both of Ekeler and Brian Robinson are 10th round picks. Wow. A 10th round pick. I mean, look, Brian Robinson was a 8th, 9th, 10th round pick last year, and for a while he was a hit. He was a big hit. For a while, if you looked at your fantasy football team and you were having a good year, you might look at your roster and say Brian Robinson is one of the reasons why I'm having a good year. You know, he's like you said, he's a banger in terms of what he can do between the tackles, his physical traits, but also he showed he's a better receiver than he ever got credit for. He's just a better all-around back year than he ever got credit for. And yeah, he's your goal line back, especially with Austin Ekeler. Not that Ekeler didn't prove with the Chargers for a little while that he can be your touchdown guy, but no, it's Brian Robinson. But there's easily a scenario, Cease, where as 10th round picks, they can both be good picks. They can both be good picks easily. If you like Jayden Daniels and you think Cliff Kingsbury, and what are we already hearing out of OTAs? And this is great. If it's a psyop, even better. But I don't think it is. What do we hear in almost every look, there's NFL psyops. There's a show
For
title.
sure.
There's a topic for you. There's NFL
Oh, yeah.
psyops. Absolutely, that's
Oh,
part
yeah.
of the NFL.
Mhm.
Individual players are doing their own psyops. I mean, if you're not if you're a cornerback or wide receiver and you're not doing psyops, why are you even at that position? It's part of the position.
Right.
All right. So Washington sees in almost every interview or every press conference when they're talking about the offense, tempo. We're going to tempo, like a no huddle, basically. I think Jayden Daniels said we're basically going to be like a no huddle offense, which is exciting for fantasy football. And look, when you hear people, and it's Washington, so we aren't helmet scouting, but of course it's what your brain accesses right away. When people are saying Jayden Daniels, and whether you're talking about NFL impact or fantasy impact, which I think is roughly the same question, a RG3 rookie year kind of impact. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you can say, and of course, the story of how RG3's career went is not a happy ending story in terms of football. But for that 1 year, it was glorious. He was like, I think he might have been the QB1. It was close. And it was right on the heels of Cam Newton being close to the QB1, I think, when he was basically. There was a time, folks, that people said rookie quarterbacks can't be important in fantasy football. RG3 was one of the guys that changed that. But we'll see. So what I think it represents is, and even some of the people that were not believers in RG3 had to concede that there's a gap, there's a lag, right? I mean, just the league's going to catch up, but for a period, the league is going to look like they're having a rough go of it. And
Yeah.
if you add tempo, that makes it more likely. And look, maybe it's for the whole season, maybe it's not for the whole season, but I do think that if we're to believe this, that Washington and Cliff Kingsbury are saying we're going to, Nolan Richardson, there's a college basketball reference for you, Well, see, I think that you can remember Chip Kelly. One of the things I really thought was neat about the way that Chip Kelly approached the idea of offense was how he approached conditioning and how he tried to make conditioning part of how his team would beat your team. Just we were better conditioned than you, but we're also going to play football in such a way so that conditioning matters more. So we're going to be better conditioned than you, and what we're going to do as Opal's going to ambush us. Come on, Opal. Go ahead, come for the extra. You like cat videos? The Audible's going to give you fantasy football and cat videos.
And cat videos, yes.
Anyway, so I think that this is exciting for this Washington offense. So I haven't even started to talk about weighing Ekeler versus Robinson, because I think the central question of whether you're in on Washington's running backs, and either one or both, why not both?
Right.
If you're in on this offense, this is a great way to put a chip on this offense. And Jayden Daniels also is pretty cheap too, like 9th round, also 8th, 9th round. But I think that if you're going to talk about the actual running back battle, finally, it just comes back to what do you think of Ekeler? We went into last year weighing Ekeler against Christian McCaffrey. So a year ago in fantasy football, that was a legitimate question. And
yes.
Now he's a 10th round pick. Now, do you think he just declined, or do you think that it was his injury and he was not 100%? Because if you think it was the injury, then Eckler's the layup here. Eckler's easy. And you can also say that because part of this also was what's the plan going to be? What is Cliff Kingsbury and company? What's their blueprint or plan for the offense? But we can't it doesn't stop there. The players then influence what happens going forward. And Austin Ekeler can be good enough that no matter what Brian Robinson offers, that the Washington says, well, we have to play Austin Ekeler. If he's the guy he was 2 years ago, you have to play that guy more than half the time, right? Or at the very
Right.
least, if he's only on the field half the time, a lot of those times he's touching the ball. And that, again, if Jayden Daniels and this tempo, and if we are looking at this is what's neat about this offense from a fantasy standpoint, is I think if you envision a no huddle offense, like the running back's not leaving the field, right? They both work.
Yes.
It's like different modes, you know?
Right.
It's like different modes for your hurry up offense. Because when Brian Robinson's out there, you better have you can't make the box too light, because Brian Robinson is going to gash you. But if Austin Ekeler's out there, you better have someone that can match up on him in the passing game, or they're just going to destroy you. Just like these easy passes, and Eckler's going to get out in space and gobble up 15, 20 yards. And the next thing you know, it's going to be 1st and goal. So as a defense, if you first have to prepare for no huddle, but then you have to prepare for like personnel packages. Well, what's our Robinson package? What's our Ekeler package? So again, I kind of think the answer here might be both.
Yeah, they got you. They've got you. Now, you ready for me to blow your mind, Sigmund? Blue. You can get them both on the field.
Yeah, pony package.
Yep. And that is being discussed. We'll say that. So, yeah.
Woof, woof.
Pretty exciting time. Exciting times if you are a Commanders fan, to be sure, because you have Jayden Daniels and just the declaration of influence, man. He's going to influence things so much you won't know what to do. You might figure it out, but early on, and again, think of windows. You're going to have a pretty big window to start. What's the adjustment after teams figure out, let's say week 6, week 8, whatever? We're fixing to find out. But that window to start, and remember, this ties into trades. What if Ekeler comes out and looks like the number 1 overall pick, right? What if he looks like the man, but you're worried about injury? Well, you're going to have a valuable trade asset that you picked up in the 10th round.
Right.
So there's layers to this, Bloom.
Yeah. See, so there's absolutely, look, because we're all galaxy brained. Here we are on our fantasy football podcast, getting galaxy brained from a just basic fantasy football standpoint. Okay. If a player who was going in the top 5 a year ago is going in the 110s, and they didn't suffer like, a Nick Chubb kind of injury, then something's off. Something players don't. This like the ADP drop would correspond to like a Ezekiel Elliott, like a drop off. Like, well, he's never going to be the guy he was before, and we can't say that about Austin Ekeler.
Right. And Austin's ready to prove everybody wrong.
Yeah.
So that's part 1 of our running back battles show. We got a lot to get to, and there's a lot of running back battles out there. So we will be back. But in the meantime, help us out on YouTube with our channels, plural. First off, about 50% of you that subscribe, that watch these videos are not subscribed. So please help us. That really, really helps the channel, makes YouTube like us more as we're pushing for 30,000 YouTube subscribers. We appreciate you all for like, comment, share, subscribe, and hitting the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Also, subscribe to our Football Guys Fantasy Football channel and subscribe to our Football Guys Dynasty Football channel as well. He's Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on Twitter, X, at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying thanks for watching. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty.